everyone. This is Anita Chan, CEO of Compass Edge. Compass Edge is an award-winning maritime agency specialized in online China branding and marketing for the tourism industry. I myself am an ex-hotelier, ex-OTA executive, ex-VP marketing at a publicly traded company, and I've worked around the world in North America, Europe, and Asia Pac. So I'm very excited today to be here to host the webinar to celebrate the launch of China Outbound Tourism Handbook 2023, 88 Practical Ways to Prepare for the New Wave of Chinese Visitors, co-authored by Professor Woodgan and Gary Bowerman, and editorial support by Ron J. So first, let me introduce Professor Woodgan. Professor Woodgan has been working with the Chinese travel market for 45 years, including 10 years of tour operator and 20 years as professor for international tourism management and as CEO of COTRI, China Outbound Tourism Research Institute based in Hamburg, Germany. Professor Woodgan has been traveling to China since 1978, and he wrote his first book on China's outbound tourism in 2006. Welcome, Professor Woodgan.
Thank you.
Okay, next we have Gary Bowerman. Gary is the director of Check-in Asia, an Asia-focused travel consulting and consumer research firm, and founder of Asia Travel Reset. This is an Asia travel analyst for Focusrite and Asia consumer trends analyst for Mintel. So he also co-hosts the Southeast Asia Travel Show and now based in Kuala Lumpur, although Gary lived in Shanghai in 2004 to 2010. Gary also published the new Chinese Traveler Business Opportunity from the Chinese Travel Revolution in 2014 and China Travel Market Report 2021 to 2025 in 2022. Welcome, Gary.
Hi, Anita.
Hi. Last but not least, let me introduce Ron Chen. Ron is a freelance consultant. She has more than 10 years of hands-on experience in supporting business activities between China and Europe. She has deep understanding of cross-culture business and familiar with a variety of industries. She's now based in Ghent, Belgium. Welcome, Ron.
Thank you, Anita.
Okay, let's get started. I know all of you have been working very hard on this book in the past 6 months. Isn't it just the perfect timing that now you're ready to launch it and China reopened the border? You know, just the perfect timing. I think you guys know, you guys have the crystal ball. Okay, but the irony is, as much as we hope and pray this day will come, now many countries are imposing special restrictions, very strict restrictions on China outbound tourists to arrive into the country. So Ron, let me start with you. I know you have a lot of friends and families still in mainland China. What do they think about the border reopening? Are they excited and ready to travel, or they have more a wait and see attitude with the restrictions imposed? What do they think?
I think in the very beginning, when the government announced the removal of the restriction, people were in general very shocked, confused, and unprepared. And then in a very short period, a lot of people get infected. And then people comes to a period that they get very angry about this chaos and the lack of medicine and lack of medical care. Yeah, you know, China is the biggest API manufacturer in the world, the biggest exporter for API like paracetamol in the world, and they are short of supply for anti-fever medicines. This is essential medicine, so people get very angry about it. But now the situation I can see now in China is a little bit calm since lots of people already got affected. So they now finally can calm down and start thinking about their own life, their work, their business, their study, or maybe even think of to plan for a trip. So like I just talked to one of my best friends 2 days ago. She's in Hainan now. She told me she's very happy she could travel again, and she will spend the Chinese New Year together with her family in Hainan, in a small, warm, beautiful city. So yeah, I think everything happens in China just too fast, too sudden. People need time to digest. So at this moment, I haven't heard from my side, not so much about traveling, especially about outbound tourism. I mean the pure leisure travel. All I heard about is like family reunion, business. Like for family reunion, like I have friends in Belgium, like me. I haven't seen my parents for almost 4 years. This is a really difficult period for all families. So all friends, they are start looking for flights to go back to China already during the Chinese New Year as soon as possible. For business sites, not only for Chinese company, also heard a lot from Belgian companies. They're happy about the open up of the border, because after these 3 years disruption of their supply chain production line, they're really happy. Business can slowly, step by step, back to normal again. So they're in general, they are happy about it. I talked to the lady who is in charge of the Belgian China Chamber of Commerce. She said the moment when the Chinese government announced the open up of the border, she got so many emails and message to ask for arranging business B2B meetings or other kind of business activities. So I think in general, from my the story from my connection, people are positive about the open up of the border. So they're looking forward to normal life, the normal business life. Yeah, but for the outbound tourism, I haven't heard so much. Pure leisure, mostly about family reunion and business. So that's the story from my connections.
Thank you. That makes sense. We all need time to digest, the sudden news. And that's the reason why we need to get prepared. Other than, a few people here, a lot of people always hope that this will happen. But when it really happened, it seems like nobody are really ready. So, that's the importance of getting ready and getting prepared at this point of time. Okay, so first, Roland, that is from the Chinese, your own personal Chinese traveler's perspective. And let me ask Professor Wittgen, you've been working with a lot of the tourism operators, tourism company. What is their perspective about the China border reopening?
Well, of course, it is clear that on the December 26th was a very important date for everybody when this announcement came. And when this announcement also, of course, was mostly talking about traveling into China, but there was one paragraph saying, or one sentence saying, okay, we will also move forward in an orderly and rational manner to open up trips for Chinese citizens to other parts of the world again. And of course, that started a lot of activity. I know that in China, obviously, many of the outbound departments of tour operators were much smaller than before. A lot of people were moved to the inbound department, or even were losing their job. And now, so they have to rebuild their outbound departments. And I know from some European tour operators, they told me that already their Chinese partners contacted them and say, oh, we have to create some new tours because, and this is what also our book is all about, the demand and the expectations of the Chinese have changed. So we will talk more about this also, I think, in a minute here. So that therefore they see that they need to create new tours, maybe less big mass market package tours and more specialized tours and so on. So, and of course, you also saw that all the platforms like Ctrip or Mafangbo, that they said that the minute this news came, the number of searches for destinations, for tickets and so on grew by, I don't know, 1,000%. So that there were a lot of people very, very excited about that. And of course, it is for everybody now an opportunity. The Chinese are coming back, hooray! But it's also a challenge because they have different expectations, and yeah, especially less and less of the customers want to be just in a big group with strangers and be walking behind the flag of a tour guide. So everybody in China, and of course also at our end as the host destinations, everybody has to relearn and restart how to deal and how to with the Chinese travelers and what is the best offer for them.
That definitely, make a lot of sense. That's quite promising. But, honestly, it's non-deniable that there are some negative sentiments building up for China as well, as we all know, in the past few years. Actually, my company has done a survey in 2021 with our China Influencers Network, asking them destinations that they would travel to post-COVID. And some of the interesting comment is they do not talk about destination, but they want to go to somewhere that they feel welcome. So I guess that's quite typical, for, Chinese to want to go to places that they feel welcome. And now with all the restrictions imposing from a lot of countries, it may be some conditions that, may order the choice of destination. Now to Gary, what do you think, the situation going to happen that the world is going to welcome back Chinese tourists with an open arm? Like, how do you see when the tide will tilt?
Yeah, that's a good question, Anita. I mean, I think Rong makes some very, very interesting points, and I think Wolfgang does as well. It's somewhere in between of what all the hope that was built up and the reality that this has happened very, very fast. As Rong said, people in China were incredibly confused that zero COVID was dropped so quickly, and it had such a dramatic effect on society, on the outbreak. And so one of the most interesting things about this really is the fact that China, unlike any other country in the world, has reopened its borders in the middle of a massive outbreak. Now, that hasn't happened before. Other countries actually opened their borders when the infection curve was going down. So that's what's alerted people around the world, governments around the world, to the fact that there is potentially a lot of Chinese outbound travelers carrying the virus with them. And there is a concern that there's a new variant. So that's the big concern at the moment. I think you can overlay that. There is some political issues as well. There are some geopolitical wrangling going on. But the important point that you also mentioned, Anita, is something that often gets overlooked within this. And that's the fact that a lot of people around the world at the beginning, we go back to the start of the pandemic, associated this primarily with Chinese people. So we did see at the beginning of the pandemic, this sort of Asian hate, this verbal and sometimes physical aggression towards people in the West against Asian people. Purely around this pandemic, because most people in the world had never experienced a pandemic before. We've got to get through that. I think we will. I think what's happening in China, is Rong said, is it's happening so fast. Everything we know in China happens at scale and at speed. So this outbreak itself has happened very, very fast. Wolfgang was telling me yesterday that the governor of one of the provinces said that 89 people in that entire province had already tested positive. So it's happening very, very fast. Of course, there are people that are going to lose their lives. There are going to be a lot of casualties. But a lot of people in the main cities seem to be through it now. You look at cities like Shanghai and Beijing, and the streets are alive again. Traffic's busy, shops, people are getting back to real life. So I think once the world comes to terms with the fact that this is going to pan out, the infection curve is going to slow down. It may take another month, perhaps another 2 months. We don't know yet. But I think once that happens, you will then start to see these testing requirements removed, and we will move back towards a normal trajectory, because the world knows that Chinese travelers, they know the economic importance. They know the fact that there are so many Chinese travelers who want to get back out into the world, spend, connect, enjoy their lives again. It's 3 years when they haven't been able to connect with the world. And I think we want that reconnective aspect. Everybody in the world wants this. We want to be as one again, but it will take a bit of time, I think.
Thanks, Gary. Actually, I'm an optimist. I talked about revenge travel, 3 years ago, and I still think it's going to happen. The question is only when. Hopefully in Q2 or Q3, we can really see that happen. Being optimistic is one thing. We all love data to support. So now, Ron, I know that you have done a lot of research. Is there any interesting data that you can share with us here?
First, I think because I live in Belgium now, so I look at tickets or as the other Chinese living abroad. So they announced, Hainan Airline announced last week, like they will increase the flights, direct flight from Brussels to Beijing from 2 times per week to 4 times per week. And this will become direct flights. And before this, because of this COVID policies in China, all these flights operated by Hainan Airline has to be diverted in Xi'an, Shanxi province for quarantine or redirects. All the passenger will be redirected by the local government to the other destinations. But now Hainan Airline announced that start from 12th of January this year, all the international flights operated by Hainan Airline designated for Beijing will no longer be diverted. So they will be all direct flights start from 12th of January. So, and the Brussels to Beijing will be included. I'm happy to hear that. This is from my personal interest. And then I also saw just a few days ago data from Ctrip. And they said till 5th of January this year, the order they have received for outbound tourism during Chinese New Year, the period of Chinese New Year, has increased more than 500% compared to the same period last year. So it's a big increase. And the most interesting part is average spending per order has also increased more than 30% year on year. So from this, it's interesting to say, this is the beginning of the explosion, beginning of the big wave. And it will come, just a matter of time. And it's really also depends on the COVID situation in China, how it goes. And also, in my opinion, social and political stability, also an important factor for the Chinese outbound tourism. That's a few interesting research I want to share.
Great. And Professor Woodkin, I just want to quickly add, I have seen some statistics from you guys doing some projections as well. Do you want to share some of those numbers as well?
There is we all know that it's has become harder and harder to predict what will happen in the future. More and more unexpected things happening, but still we have used the best of our ability to look into the crystal ball, and we have been rather right. So I said a year ago, I wrote that by the beginning of 2023, China will open, and so it happened. Well, nobody knew the way it will be so sudden, that this is really a explosion in slow motion, what we are seeing now. But so we are saying that we're expecting that in the first quarter of this year, it will be mostly non-leisure travelers, business travelers, education, health, and family reunion. So that this will be maybe something like 12 million travelers, mostly also half of them are also going to Hong Kong, because Hong Kong is already open since a few days. And then in the second quarter, that will double to maybe 24 million. Again, always half of it is going to Hong Kong and Macau. And then in the second half, we will see something like 80 million, so 40 million per quarter. So because then people will have passports and visa, and we will have enough affordable flight tickets again. So that therefore, altogether, so our forecast is like something like 110 million trips or border crossings happening, half of them to Hong Kong, Macau, half of them beyond, which is about 2/3 of the level of 2019. In 2019, we had about 170 million border crossings, out of which 75 went to Hong Kong, Macau, and 95 went further. So, so therefore, it will be less than 2/3 for destinations outside of Greater China. And if we have economic and political stability in China in 2024, we expect that we reach the 2019 level again, and China will be back as the #1 tourism source market rather soon. And so that's why there is no way to ignore the Chinese market. So I think in the last 3 years, a lot of destinations have almost forgotten about the market. So not in Southeast Asia, for them it's very, very important, but let's say in Europe or America, a lot of the people who had been working with the Chinese market were assigned to other jobs as well. So it is now, some people are not really prepared to work with the Chinese market again, and they have to now get back to that. But I think it is there's no question to say, should we work with the Chinese market, yes or no, because it will be more than 100 million trips in this year, and it's 10% of the global travel, so you cannot ignore it.
Yeah, definitely. First, Professor Woodgate, I think numbers is important, like being the highest number of arrival, the number of trips and everything. But like Ron just said earlier, the spending power of Chinese is also very important too. Like Chinese increase the spending power. So I think that is not going away, and they are still spending money, in every aspect in their life. So I think that's important for us to know too. Because some people think, oh, the economy is going to collapse, people are not going to spend money. And obviously, from Ron's personal experience, it's not happening. The expenditure is increasing and people are willing to spend. I think that's also an important fact that people need to put into play when we look at, in addition to numbers. Okay, thanks both of you. So let's dive into the new handbook, 88 Practical Ways to Prepare for the New Wave of Chinese Visitor. When I first see the name of this book, I smile, because from the name, I know you guys are the expert in China market. Western world, they will pick top 100, top 10 tips, that kind of thing. You guys, 88, okay? 8 is a very good number in Chinese. 88, double 8, perfect number. Okay, so, you guys really know the China market very well. So now 3 is also a good number. Let me ask you guys for the, top 3 tips. From each one of you, from Gary and Professor Woodgate as the co-author. What advice will you give for us to get prepared? So we'll start with Gary, and then Professor Woodgate, and then Gary, Professor Woodgate, and then until we finish the 3. So Gary, over to you.
Okay, well, thanks, Anita. Yeah, we had big conversations about the number that we would actually include, and Rong and Wolfgang and myself eventually came to 88, and then we were a bit concerned because 88 sounded quite a lot. But what we've done is we've actually broken the book down into 88 individual themes and topics. So each one is very specific to a different niche segment or to a different part of the Chinese travel industry, because we all are very, very aware that the word Chinese tourist gets used quite a lot, but it's such a big market. It includes everything from backpacking right up to ultra high-end luxury. So we've tried to include everything in between. So there's something for everybody, for airlines, for hotels, for tourism operators, for destinations. So we've tried to encompass all of those areas. So in terms of your question, Anita, it's quite difficult to break it down to just 3 because I don't want to leave anybody out. But what I would say is overall, I think globally at the moment, I go to quite a lot of travel conferences around the world. And one of the key issues in all markets at the moment is payments, is how do you actually manage to make people, or how do you facilitate the payments of different travelers from around the world, particularly as the world goes much, much more digital. Now, the one thing we know in China is it went digital before everybody else. It went mobile. Its mobile payments are so entrenched into the Chinese consumer economy. So anybody that wants to engage with Chinese travelers going forward, it sounds very simplistic, but make sure you have the latest version of the software for WeChat Pay, for Alipay, and for Union Pay. Quite simply because Chinese travelers now, it's non-negotiable that they would want to use smartphone-based payments, and not just because it's more seamless, it's more efficient, it directly connects to their account. But I think if there are fears of safety or security going forward, they don't want to be carrying cash, they don't want to be carrying cards, and they don't want to withdraw money from an ATM. So therefore, the smartphone-based payment is efficient, it's seamless, and it's much more secure.
Perfect. Definitely payment, like just getting into the China ecosystem in a way, right? Like payment is an important part of the digital wallet, the ecosystem. And that's a great first tip. Professor Wittgen, to you now on the first tip.
Yes, so it's, well, we talked already about the fact that how they travel is changing. So smaller groups, more individual groups, but it's also, of course, a point where they are traveling. And I think you clearly see the tendency that after 3 years, where they had time to dream about where to go and to assemble information, that new destinations, smaller destinations, places not so many people have been going to, that they have a big opportunity to get their piece of the cake if they offer interesting activities to do there, so that there will be clearly a trend away from going where everybody goes towards saying, no, I'm a experienced traveler, so I discovered places which have not been visited so far by so many Chinese people, and that will be the bragging power will not come to say, I'm also have been on the Eiffel Tower, but rather to say, I've been in a small village in Albania, first Chinese person going there, so that people will say, wow, this is more impressive. So that is one important change, and that means that the hot destinations like, I don't know, Paris or Milano or places like that, they will have to work harder to give people reasons to come back to them. Whereas for new destinations, from a Chinese point of view, there are a lot of opportunities if they get their story right and their products right, that more Chinese will also come to them.
Thanks. I think that's very important. Those popular destinations cannot just rely on what they have already to continue to attract the new wave of the Chinese visitor. Everyone has to unlearn and relearn and put in something interesting to attract the new Chinese travelers. I guess that's what you say, activity-based, experience-based. Okay, Gary, the second one.
Second one. Okay, so the book essentially, Anita, is about how the travel industry and how related sectors around the world have to be prepared for this new wave of Chinese travelers. But one of those things I think we have to really understand is we have to be respectful and sensitive to the new sensitivities of Chinese travelers themselves. They're going to be adapting to a new world. It's 3 years since many Chinese traveled around the world. A lot has changed since then. We've had a global pandemic, we've had inflation, we've had a lot of different situations. Visa situations have changed, these kinds of things. And I think particularly living in Asia, you understand that the Asian sensitivities towards the virus, towards protecting yourself, and towards actually protecting getting sick in the first place are quite different to the Western world. So if Chinese travelers are there and they still want to social distance, they may still be wearing masks, and they may be reticent to actually go into crowded areas. We have to respect that. We don't comment on that. We don't make any draw attention to it, because this is really reacquainting with a world that they've been unfamiliar with for 3 years. As Rong said, this has been a very traumatic period in China, not just the last month, which definitely has, because after 3 years of having no confrontation with COVID-19, all of a sudden, almost the entire country has caught the virus. That in itself is traumatic. But living under COVID zero for the past 3 years has been very traumatic too. So we have to understand that as people go back out into the world from whatever country they are, when I first took my first trip overseas after 2.5 years, I was nervous sitting on a plane, I have to admit. I think we have to understand that. I know the world is living with COVID-19 right now. It's China's turn to go through that process. So let's understand that.
Yeah, that's a great point. And as I am not always a political correct person, I would just say, the internet censorship in China, sometimes really make the mainland Chinese do not know 100% of what's happening outside. So when they first step out and see the world, it may be a surprise to them. And we have to take that into account. Why do they behave like that? Because they do not know how other people behave before, with the internet and everything. So I think that kind of respect is needed. And I think that will keep, everyone happy, and definitely a very, very valuable point. So Professor Wittgen, the second one.
The second one I would mention out of the 88 points we are making is still segmentation. So during these 3 years, people also had a lot of time, more time than they were asking for, also to develop their hobbies, their special interests, exchanging with other people sharing the same interest. So I think the segmentation of the market, that different people want to do different things, is happened before the pandemic already, but this has been widely moved forward, and therefore there are groups of Chinese not choosing a destination but choosing an activity, and they will say, I'm interested in, and that can be food, big topic now, music, culture, architecture, green issues, whatever, and I want to go to places where I can follow my special interest, my hobby. So, and that you are as a service provider, as a destination, that you are thinking about, okay, what kind of special interest I can cater for, and then focus your marketing and your communication on these people. And so not starting to say, hey, we have a nice place, come here, and then we will see what you can do, but saying, hey, you are interested in bird photography. Well, we have 50 kinds of birds only in our country. And if you come here, you can make wonderful birds. Nobody else has a photo of. Your friends will be green with envy that you have a photo of that bird. So come here. And by the way, you need a ticket to this and this airport. And this is something I think which will be growing much more, and the market is so big and so segmented. So don't try to offer everything for everybody. You will be much more successful if you analyze carefully. Okay, from a Chinese point of view, what do I have? What is attractive? And of course, these can be things which are normal for local people. I'm based in northern Germany, and in the summertime we have almost 18 hours daylight. Like now we had 18 hours darkness. So for somebody living in the south of China, this is a sensational experience. You can play golf at 10 p.m., 11 p.m. In the daylight. So something which, if you ask the people around me here in Hamburg, they will say, oh, that's normal. So that is something, if you understand where your customer is coming from, that is very special. Most of our customers live in big cities. So nature has become a big topic now. So all the outdoor things will be very important. Camping has become a big trend in China in the last 3 years. So all these things which are for us rather more normal to be closer to nature, is for people living in this 15 million, 20 million people cities, sensational experience. So that is, I think, a very important point to know which segment of the market you can cater for and specialize on them also in your communication, in your distribution channels.
Absolutely. As a marketer, it's near and dear to my heart. When people ask, give me a China strategy, I'm like, what China strategy, right? You need to know the specific segment that you're targeting. Who are you going for? I always say that's 1.4 billion people, Chinese people in China. Even if you spend 1 cent for each consumer, if you target the mass market, you will going to break the bank before you reach anyone. So, definitely you need a very specific approach. You need to set your objective, know your target audience in order to be successful. That definitely, be something that is near and dear to my heart. Thank you, Professor Lucia. Okay, Gary, now the last big one, the third one.
Okay, well, I'm going to give you a third that's quite complementary to that, Anita. And I know as a marketer, this will come very close to your heart as well. And that's demographics. So we can segment the market in terms of the niche interests and the actual travel industry and lifestyle type experiences that people want. We have to look at the demographics of China. And as you said, Anita, it's 1.4 billion people. Now, I know, because a lot of the work I do is in consumer technology and consumer trends, we do tend to focus very, very exclusively on the post-90s and the post-2000s generation, the Gen Zs, as you call them, because they do really they're first adopters. They want to create and use new technologies. They're very willing to try and experiment with new technologies. And that's quite important. Obviously, we cannot overlook that. But also, I mean, China is an aging country, so we need to look at senior travelers. But then when you look at senior travelers, you know, that's not one demographic either. So a senior traveler from Shandong is going to want something very different to a senior traveler from Guangdong, perhaps, you know. So we have to look at this a huge country, which is almost a continental size. We have to look at it in terms of demographics. We have to look at it in terms of things like families, young couples, groups of 20-something friends who want to go on a trip to Europe. You know, the segmentation of China is so difficult, and that's why digital marketing agencies earn so much money, because they have to drill down to granular level on absolutely everything they do. And you'll know this better than I will, Anita. It's a very, very difficult country to segment, but if you don't do it right, then you're simply just throwing money away and you're just sending out messaging into the air. So to get it right and to stop wasting your own time, you have to do a little bit more research. That's difficult, but obviously that's something we can help you with. Yeah,
absolutely, absolutely. That's, you know, you speak what I want to tell my hoteliers all the time. Absolutely. Yeah. And Professor Wuthke, your last point.
Yes. So I will probably follow in the same vein, saying also is who is telling your story? And there is something called recommendation marketing. And I think everybody has a common wisdom. Chinese social media are so important, and you have to pay some KOL, some key opinion leader, some influencer, $1 million so that he tells his 50 million followers Belgium is a wonderful country. But the point is that probably out of the 50 million followers, 49.9 don't have enough money to travel to Belgium. So what's the point? And also they will know, and they have learned also during the pandemic, that this guy is paid for saying that. And it is much more convincing that, and we have now live streaming also for consumers. So people being on TikTok, so on Douyin, as it's called in China. So giving an incentive to your guests, to your customers, that they tell their friends how wonderful it is to be here. So yeah, if you're a hotel, you can say, okay, you get a free drink, or the hotel director comes for 1 minute to shake your hand, so you can show your friends, hey, look, the director personally came to welcome me. And then so they might only have 1,000 followers in their network, but these people, if they have the money to travel, let's say to Brussels, so then their friends probably also have the money to travel to Brussels. So you're talking to the right segment of the Chinese society. And they will believe that their friends or virtual friends are not telling them something just blah, 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 but that this is not propaganda, this is not advertisement, but this is really a opinion they have, and the tip they're giving to their friends. So I think a lot of money has been spent on wonderful videos which were produced by the companies, but I think you have to you can spend your money much wiser to say let's create user-generated content where the users are saying it's wonderful here, and that can be even people resident. So if somebody like Rong living in Belgium, if she is doing a blog, my life as a Chinese in Belgium, well, you pay her some €100 a month, and she will write something, and people will be much more interested to find out. And we talked about Asia hate. Now I think every Chinese traveler will be concerned: will I be attacked verbally or even worse for being a Chinese? Will they say, you brought us the virus or not? And this information you cannot get from official sources. There's a destination marketing organization. Of course, they will say, welcome, welcome. So what else are they expecting? So I want to ask a fellow Chinese. So like Rong, she will tell me the truth. Did anybody spit you at you or say something bad to you because you are Chinese looking because of the virus or not? So that will be a vital piece of information, and you need user-generated content for that. So that is, I think, an important point. And now, when you get customers back in a few months, so use them to tell the rest of the people in China it is safe. So there is the virus. Don't worry about the virus here, and also it is safe. They're not throwing stones at you because you look like a Chinese. So that will be very important.
Yeah, that's another level of influencer marketing in a way, but not pay influencer, but more using your consumer as your ambassador to tell good things to the world. So, it's another layer, another world, influencers marketing, so to speak. And it's really, really useful, as you say, user generated content. And just from the 3 tips, each one of you give it to me, I think your book is very valuable resources, because it's not just theoretical, but it's practical. We can learn and then use it and apply. I learned a lot today. Thank you very much. So congratulations, and wish you guys huge success in the launch of your book. And in closing, I would like to throw out a big question. Okay, so it's not going to be a long question. Each one of you can answer very shortly. What do you think will be the game changer? Okay, in China Outbound Tourism in the post-COVID era. So maybe we'll start with Gary first.
What will be the game changer? Well, I mean, crystal ball again, Anita. I think one of the things that Wolfgang touched on earlier is going to be very, very important, is the fact that probably in the initial period, people might want to travel back to destinations that they know, to trusted destinations, particularly closer to home, so probably in Asia Pacific. But I think longer term, we're going to see different booking patterns. We're going to see people that have been at home for 3 years and have been dreaming about their dream destination are going to want to go to their dream destination. So I think we're going to see, maybe towards the end of this year and certainly into 2024, emerging destinations really becoming much more popular. Now, that could be anywhere from Cuba to a small country in Asia Pacific called Brunei, which has canopy walking in the rainforest, that kind of thing. We're starting to develop with Chinese travelers before the pandemic. I think we'll see more people going to there. I think we'll see more wedding and honeymoon destinations becoming more popular, that luxury getaway where you can literally just enjoy your life in privacy and with seclusion. Look at countries, regions like Latin America. So countries like Ecuador, which has just signed a free trade agreement with China. Ecuador has great tourism opportunities, really untapped at the moment. So I think going forward, we will look at emerging destinations. There will be more, of course. I can't list them all. But I think that's something definitely for 2024.
Right. Ron, what do you think will be the game changer?
Game changer, in my opinion, there's no big surprise. For me, as FIT travel and family travel. I think the pandemic has a big impact on these 2 kinds of travel. For family travel, I think after the border open up of the border and people can see their family again, about family relations. They just simply want to be with the family, spending more time with the family, doing things together. Of course, travel together. So on the other kind of family, they haven't suffered from the separation like the others. I think they also didn't have so much chance to travel in China, within China, or outside of China. So I think this will be a period for families, especially families with kids, with children. They want to go out of China together with their children to see the world again, to let the kids see the world again. And that's about the family travel. For the FIT travel, it's interesting, like I just saw a survey. It shows that more than 70% of the respondents, they said they prefer to travel alone or with friends and family rather than in a group. This is almost double the number like before the pandemic. Before pandemic, it's about 40% of people willing to travel prefer the FIT travel. So it's a bit similar like what Gary said, it's for the emerging destination, and mostly it's about for young generations. They want to look for something new. They look for a new and different experience in life after the pandemic, and a destination from where it could represent their personal or individual value. So I think this two kinds of travel will be a new game changer, especially in the near future.
Great, thanks, Ron. Professor Wickham?
Well, my answer might be a bit more surprising. I think it is sustainability. So because what was not covered so much in Western media is the fact that also last summer, also China had never seen before flooding and droughts and heat waves and all the results of climate change also arriving in China. And well, if you read the scientific papers about sea levels rising, so it looks like that by 2050, which is within the lifetime for the majority of the Chinese, Shanghai will be underwater. So the ocean will have gobbled up places like Shanghai. So therefore, you can see that there is a growing interest among travelers, of course, younger, but not only young travelers, in the question how sustainable is traveling, and may also what can we learn from what is happening in the rest of the world, but also asking, okay, in my hotel, so where is the electricity and the heat coming from, and what do you do with your waste? And so these stories of Chinese wasting lots of food because this is the custom, or grabbing everything from the buffet, I think you see a counter movement to that. So there is in China a movement even of frugality, so that it is chic now for some people to not to brag how much money they have been spending, but with how little money they can have a meaningful life. And so this meaningful tourism will also be a trend. So that therefore it's a good idea it's a good idea to do something for the environment, that's for sure. And it's also a good idea to talk about it and to tell also the Chinese visitors before and when they're there, what you do and how they can connect with the local community, which is also a part of it, next to the environment. So how can they get closer to people maybe sharing the same interests they have, and how can they also minimize their ecological footprint as well. So that is something we shouldn't be so arrogant to say, oh, we know China is the biggest polluter in the world. Yeah, but they're also the biggest number of people in the world. And that is, again, an opportunity. If you have been doing a lot as a destination or as a service provider in that field, that this is something, but tell the Chinese potential customers about it. They will be more interested than most people think.
Great, thank you. So I'm going to give mine as well. So as for me, I think the game changer will be the rise of the middle class and how they can leapfrog to change the landscape of the China outbound tourism. You know, I've recently read the McKinsey China Consumer Report 2023, and the rise of the middle class actually fueled the robust growth in the consumer market in China already. So you know, as we all know, how China, you cannot expect the middle class to go into the same pace or the same step as in, you know, outside world, like we expect. I think, you know, for me, we have seen how China has come up with the WeChat super app, how China has come up with a different kind of recommendation-based marketing scheme that is different from the Western world. I can see how the middle class in China can actually leapfrog very quickly to be savvy traveler. And actually, that will be an important field for China outbound market. So not just focusing on the 10% of the most luxury and rich people, those will be an important segment for the majority of the tourism industry. And that's what I see, or my crystal ball as the game changer in the China outbound market. So hopefully that, all our opinions is useful to our audience here, and you've enjoyed the hour or 45 minutes that we spent with you. And just remember, your book is going to be published on Chinese New Year's Day, January 22nd. So happy Chinese New Year, happy Year of the Rabbit, and congratulations again. Thank you very much for your time for the webinar today. Thank you.
Thanks, Anita.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Anita, and bye-bye.
Bye.